And now that you've got the top taped off, you want to take a little bit of alcohol on a rag and just sort of clean the back side of this off just a tad, so that when we take this off, your tape is sure to stick. This will remove any dust and contaminants. We'll take same method as before. Tape it off, overhanging the edges, and this will just stop the squeeze out from the back side of the window from making a mess on your fuselage or top deck. Then trim it off flush. And now that you've got the bottom and the top tape off completed, and you've got the joggle sanded, you're ready to install the pilings or the risers around the perimeter that will adjust your depth of your window and hold it at a depth that's flush with the surface of your fuselage. You need to take the original couple of beads that you laid out on your plastic or your wax paper that's now cured for several days, and cut them into, say, 1/4 inch tabs, like so. Depending on the window installation, which window you're installing will determine where these tabs need to go and how many of them you need to place. You want to put as many as you need, but no more than necessary. What I do is I take a little bit of Sil-Proof on a board, and on this particular window installation, I know that from past experience, and you'll be able to figure it out for yourself on the particular window that you're installing. When you go to install your pilings and they've cured, you'll start fitting your depth, and you'll see that when you push your window down against them, you might find a particular area that may need some clamping, and you want to have one of these pilings underneath the area that's going to be clamped. Or you might find that a particular window is just a tad bit warped or has a weird hump in it along the perimeter that causes it to be a little bit low in the joggle, and at that point you want to give it some stability by putting a riser underneath that area of the window. So if, for instance, this side of the top deck window would go down and then come back up, if it had a little depression in it, you'd want to have a pad here to hold it up so that when you put pressure on either side of it, it would make it flush and maintain a flat surface along the perimeter of the joggle where it intersects with the fuselage. The quarter-deck windows, you'll find that that's pretty prevalent in the areas of the quarter-deck windows. You'll find that you need to pay particular attention to the shape of the window when applying these standoffs. For this particular window on the top deck, I know that the top deck has a bend, slight curvature far and aft, so I want a pad in the middle of it to be able to bend over, and I want the outer edges, the front and back edges rather, where I'm going to be doing my clamping, I want those to be secured in the four corners and in the middle of each edge. or in the middle of the front and in the middle of the back edges. Okay, at this point you need to let these cure till overnight, just like you're letting your color on your window cure till tomorrow. And tomorrow what you would do is come back and lay your window in here, and we'll slightly take these down a little bit at a time till the window drops down into position. It's important to time this all out so that your color on your window really doesn't cure for 3 or 4 days. You want to be able to have it just hard enough in curing process so that the color on the window won't be disturbed when they come down on these pilings. If you don't let it cure enough, when it comes down on the pilings, it'll disturb the color, and you'll see it when you look at the window from the outside. On the flip side of the coin, you don't want to let it cure so long that you compromise the secondary bond of the sill-proof that we're going to put in this joggle when we do the final gluing of the window into the joggle. So it's recommended really no more than 24 hours. I like to say 12 to be on the safe side, which gives you a good day to get all this pilings down, get your windows colored and taped, and get all your stuff ready. You put it aside and you come back tomorrow after these are cured and after your color on your window is cured, and then you go ahead and try to install it. So it's safe to assume that you could usually get 2 windows installed in any 1 day's period. When I say you can install a couple of windows in a day, you're looking at this video seeing segments of the entire operation. It's actually going to be a sizable amount more time. This top deck system here will probably take about 6 hours to complete, so start to finish, that's a good half a day's work one day and then half a day's work the next day, so you can juggle it if you've got the time and set all this up and go on to fitting and scribing your top deck windows. And then when you install, or your quarter deck windows, say, and when you install these, you can come back the next day and you can color your quarter deck windows for the next day's installation. So you can actually plug right along on this if you're at that stage. Okay, here we are the next day after the window color has gone on and is dried for 12 hours. Your pads have been installed and they're dry, they're not going anywhere. You need to take and slice off, fit your window. You'll find that the window, because your pads were about 1/4 of an inch, will probably be about 3/16 of an inch or so above. Rough cut them down like I've done here. You just slice them down a little bit at a time. When you think you're close, you take your window, you position your window where it's going to go, and you can feel around the edges to see that the window is still a tad bit proud of the surrounding fuselage. With a sharp razor blade, you can come back in and slice the sill-proof down just a tad on each one of them, a little bit at a time, and do 3 or 4 of them. And check your fit. You check your fit with your finger if you feel that that's good enough, or you can take a straight edge and go like this, and I see that I'm not catching on the lip of the window, so it's pretty flush. The window is about the same height as the outside of the fuselage. And it's possible to overcut them. If you overcut them and you're concerned that the window is going to be lower than the fuselage, then you can come back and just add one of the shavings that you shaved off to the top of it with a little bit of super glue or CA adhesive or some sort of fast drying adhesive that will allow you to continue to work uninterrupted by time, curing of the glue. I'm going to fit these one at a time now. Since I've got the front pretty much close, I'm just going to take slivers off. That one's good. we'll take these down slow so as not to overcut them. And keep checking them. And when you're happy with it, we'll continue on to the gluing process and the clamping process of installing the window. Okay, now that you have all of your heights good in relationship to the joggle and the window and the proper alignment, you're happy with it, you can take the window and you'll have, from the original coloring of the window, you'll have a little bit of squeeze out and roll out on the edge. You can take your fingernail and just sort of clean this up. This will stop it from coming loose when we pull the fillet and the radius in the reveal when we install the window. And just rub that off. It comes off really easy. You rub it with your hand or your fingernail. The thin film, it comes off rather easily. You want to be careful not to disturb the color on the top, though. Just concentrate on the edge. When I say the top, I mean actually the bottom of the coloring there. I'm going to remove all of this. Clean it up really good. And do the same thing to the top. Just make sure there's no squeeze out on the top or excess seal-proof. You've got it all cleaned up. Clean this up a little bit. What you've got to do now is we're going to locate the position of the window clamps. In this particular window, on the top deck window, you'll find that the four corners will work the best. That's all you need to do, because you've got your center, you've got a slight radius in there. When you clamp the edges down, the corners, it will bend over these center two tabs that you've got here. So we're going to locate a hole in this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner. And what I'm going to do is take a number 40 drill bit and a drill motor. I'm going to drill a hole right here in the corner, right where the pad is. There's a pad adjacent to the drill. And I want to stay as close to center of the 3/16 or so reveal that you've put in there. And drill a hole in each corner. Being careful not to hit the window. Now we've got our 4 holes for positioning of the window clamps. And I'm going to need to mark those because we'll never find them when we put the adhesive in there. So I'm just going to put a little strike at each hole so that I can find it when we install the seal-proof. Okay. Get all the tidbits removed from your work area. What we're going to do now is we're going to proceed to the installation of the window with the seal-proof. This particular tube of seal-proof is only about maybe a fifth gone, so we're going to have plenty of seal-proof in this tube. What I do is I fill the joggle up quite a bit to achieve 100% squeeze out, to make sure that we're not going to have any voids or air bubbles in the joggle area when we push the window in. Better to use a little bit too much and be assured of 100% bonding than to have too little and have to pull the window back out and add some more. So don't be shy with the adhesive. It's inexpensive enough that it's not worth the aggravation and having to come back and do it a second time. Now comes a pretty important part, is in the 1/16 of an inch of clear glass that you've got between the first layer of tape that you put down, which will be the next layer of tape that we pull off, and the actual seal-proof. We want to make sure that that's 100% covered with seal-proof. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay a little bit of seal-proof on here, taking care not to scrape the tube on the seal-proof to prematurely release it from the glass. I'm going to just add some on there. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to make sure that that's really covered in that hole, in that groove. You want to make sure that that's 100% filled with color so that it doesn't leave a line on the outside when you look through the glass. You want to make sure you don't see that 1/16 of an inch. So make sure there's no air entrapment and just rub it in. Make sure it's got a good coverage in there. And put maybe just a little bit too much seal-proof on this when I did it, but it'll be okay. Alright, we've got that 100% covered. At this stage, a lot of paper towels are going to be necessary for your cleanup. I'm going to take this window and I'm going to position it as close to where it needs to be as possible. Okay, now that we've placed the window here, we need to take our wing nut Clecos, number 40 Clecos. I believe it's part number 1070 from Avery Aircraft Supply. You can buy these there. These are nice Clecos because they're adjustable in the amount of pressure that you put on. What I've done is I've taken a piece of 50 thousandths aluminum or 90 thousandths aluminum, cut it into a small block rectangle, probably about 3/4 of an inch by 5/16 of an inch, and I've drilled a 40 hole in the middle of it, and then I've eased the edges and deburred all the edges on a bench grinder to make sure that there's no edges that are going to scratch the plexiglass. Insert the wing nut Cleco clamp through the hole and get these set up. You're going to need one of these for every position that you've marked that you figured you need a hole. On these top deck windows, it's typically 4. The quarter deck windows, you'll probably need as many as 7 or 8 for each window, and probably pretty close to the same for the door windows. When it comes time to install the windshield, you may need as many as 17 to 20, depending on how distorted the window is or how misshapen it is, whether it's got some waviness in the edges. And you'll need to make sure that everywhere where it's high or proud, you put a clamp to bring it down to flush. Now that the window's here, I'm gonna slowly push it down into place, trying to maintain my 3/16 of an inch gap the best that I can, and take the clamps where the mark is. I should find a hole, which I did, and we'll just tighten this up just snug. We'll put one in each corner. And just get it close. Right now we're still going to need some